YouTube, Jeremy Wright here, and what we're doing now is checking on my smallest standard aquarium, being like something that's kind of rectangular, flat glass walls. This is my orange Neo shrimp tank. It's also got some seed shrimp, maybe Daphnia. You can kind of see some little critters mid-screen there, directly on that blade of grass, a white speck. And then if we just look around this tank, it's mostly full of plants. I always have a hard time finding the shrimp, but they're in here, obviously. And then, oops, looks like, actually that may be a baby shrimp. Let's see if we can get it in focus. And then zoom. Not a baby shrimp. Or is it? I don't think it is. I think it's something else. But what I wanted to share with you is essentially this tank doesn't get any, there we go, much better view. This tank doesn't get any maintenance or care or food. It's just allowed to go. It's probably got about a gallon of water in it. And the most I've done is just come over here and scrape a bit of algae, give it a little water change, remove a lot of the plant matter, which I've done maybe twice. I think twice is a good guess. But it's probably time to come over here and check the pH. And I would expect that the pH is rising in this tank, as it generally does in my tanks that have tons of plants like this. And yeah, I'm pretty satisfied with it. Oh, here's a cool spot. Like looking on the glass right here, we definitely see some of the little critters that are living in here. If there were fish in here, those wouldn't survive. But since it's just a shrimp tank, no problems. And I haven't seen any flatworms. Haven't seen anything that I would consider a pest to the shrimp. But again, I just let this tank sit over here roughly unattended all the time, and that's fine. That's what it should do. Nature doesn't need your help, right? Nature doesn't need my help. But we can steer it. And in steering, I may put some plants that will be a bit less labor intensive, because I don't like coming over here and having to like take this big thing off the top of the tank, take the lid off, and then be able to service it. But it's time to check. Maybe add some more invertebrates, remove some plants, add some different plants, maybe small stuff like mosses. It's got some itty bitty stuff that's going okay, like it's probably a Nana Petite, maybe abuse somewhere in the back. No, I don't see any abuse, but I'll modify it so it doesn't look like a freaking bird's nest. But all the same, it's kind of cool because I don't do anything. It's unfiltered. There's no CO2, no fertilizers that go into this. It just prolifically grows plants and keeps little animals alive without me doing anything. They're just in there eating the algae, the detritus, the decay, whatever else that they might find. But I've only fed this tank twice, maybe 3 times in 3 or 4 months. So yeah, definitely not necessary. What I enjoy doing is making environments that take care of themselves, that are very low maintenance, and also not costly, because if we can develop and share the methods for doing this stuff the way nature does, some people in the hobby may view this as a threat to their income stream or their revenue, but really what I'm trying to show people is you don't need fertilizers. Your tank will produce its own CO2 at the level that would run a CO2 drop checker in the olive green range, like right in between yellow and blue. And that's ideal for plants in a planted aquarium like this. And it just happens down there in the substrate all by itself. And then prolific plant growth. Now, in this tank, because I'm not adding food, it's not really aquaponics. This is more like just a closed ecosystem. And that's cool, that's great, that's fine. But when I remove plants, I have to, be mindful. I'm removing a lot of mechanism from this as well. So increasing biodiversity is always a good thing for a little closed system like this. So I may look into some of my other tanks, maybe grab some pond snails. I noticed that there are some Malaysian trumpet snail shells down here. Those aren't snails that died. They were actually in the sand. So in other words, those shells were just in dried out sand that I pulled from a tank outside. And whatever, I thought they were fine. Not hurting me, not hurting the system. Might add a little bit of extra minerals or something for these little bitty guys, but not hurting anything. But I think it's time to introduce some live snails and maybe even more shrimp. But yeah, things are going well. Things are going well. If you dig this kind of thing, the natural method, this kind of goes right along with Diane Wallstad, Father Fish, the things I've been preaching for the last 5 years or so. And I totally enjoy this kind of thing. Saw another orange shrimpy in there. Yeah, there we go. So they're definitely in there. They're just hard to find because it's a jungle. And not a concrete jungle. It's a real jungle. That's the kind we like. If you dig this sort of thing, drop some comments. Let me know what you're doing. Show me what you've got going on in your hobby, or how this sort of thinking may impact your hobby. I really don't buy that much. I buy food every once in a while. I mean, you don't even have to buy a dechlorinator. You just leave some tap water out, and as long as you don't have chloramine in your water, it's going to be fine. Just leave it out for 24 hours. Or use rainwater. You can use soft rainwater. Actually, you should test the pH and test rainwater just like you test tap water. Know what you're putting in your tanks. Like, that's critical. Know what you're adding, not just what you're taking out. But yeah, you can do a lot just using nature, not using the ways of the hobby or what the pet stores sell, or because those are really just, gotcha tricks. And that's not what we need to learn and grow as hobbyists. We need information. We need people pushing the state of the art. And fortunately, in the beginning of this century, that has really started to happen. It's still really hard to convince people that, that is the way of the future, but it is. We don't need all those chemicals, and we don't need all the extra nonsense. Just use the nature, learn from nature, and employ it. I'll catch you later.